I spoke, my voice would break, and I didn't want to give her that satisfaction, so I left, without a word. And that was the beginning of everything. I was 62 when I moved in with my son and his wife, Nina. My health wasn't perfect, a little arthritis, a weak back, but I was still strong enough to cook, clean, and keep the home warm. My son Arjun had insisted I move in. "Ma, this house will always have space for you," he had said. His voice had that same honesty it carried when he was a boy. I believed him. The first few months were lovely. Nina treated me well, polite, smiling, respectful. She would ask me about my old recipes, and sometimes we'd sit together on the balcony, drinking tea as the sun went down. I thought she genuinely cared. I thought, maybe I'm lucky. Many mothers I knew complained about their daughters-in-law, but mine seemed gentle. But slowly, things began to change. It started with small things: her sighs when I entered the kitchen, her silence at the dinner table, her short replies when I tried to talk. I told myself she was just tired, busy, or adjusting. After all, sharing a home isn't always easy. One evening, as I was folding laundry, I overheard a conversation between Arjun and Naina. She said, "We need more privacy, Arjun. It feels like we're never alone." He replied softly, "Ma's just here for a while. She has nowhere else to go." Those words, "she has nowhere else to go," stung. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. After that day, I started keeping to myself. I spent more time in my room, reading old letters or tending to the small plants I kept by the window. The walls began to feel heavier, the air quieter. I could sense the shift, like the warmth of a candle slowly fading into smoke. I never told Arjun how I felt. He had always been a good son, gentle, thoughtful, and caring. But marriage changes things. It should, of course. A man must build his own family. I just didn't expect that in the process, I would become invisible. Sometimes I would catch Nina staring at me when I walked by. Her expression, unreadable, not angry, not sad, just distant, like she was trying to figure out where I fit in her life. Then came the first real argument. It was a Sunday morning, quiet, cloudy, and slow. The kind of morning when you just want to stay in bed and listen to the rain. I had woken up early, as I always did, to prepare breakfast. Arjun loved parathas with butter, and Naina liked toast and green tea. It made me happy to start their day with something warm. As I was cooking, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Naina. Her tone that morning was sharp, not angry, just cold. "Ma, you don't need to make breakfast every day," she said, pulling out her cup. I smiled. "I don't mind, Beta, I like doing it." She didn't smile back. "Still, it's not necessary. We have routines. You can rest." Her words weren't harsh, but the distance in them was new. There was no warmth, no softness, just formality, like she was speaking to a guest she didn't invite. I nodded quietly and continued flipping the paratha. That day, Arjun didn't notice anything. He chatted cheerfully about work, about a new project, about how proud he was of Naina's promotion. I smiled too, pretending nothing had changed. But something inside me had shifted just a little. Days turned into weeks. I began noticing more small changes, the kind you can explain to others, but feel deeply when you're reliving through them. The kitchen shelves suddenly rearranged. My old spice jars replaced with new ones. My sari hanging space moved to a smaller corner in the wardrobe. One afternoon, I found my framed photo of Arjun as a child, missing from the living room shelf. When I asked Naina about it, she said casually, "Oh, I just thought we could put our wedding photo there. It's more current." I smiled again, said, "Of course," and walked back to my room. But as I sat on my bed, the tears came quietly. It wasn't about a photo. It was about being gently erased, one corner, one shelf, one moment at a time. A few nights later, I heard them arguing. The house was dim, the TV humming faintly in the background. I didn't want to listen, but the walls were thin. Naina said, "She's always here, Arjun. I feel like I'm living in her house, not ours." He replied softly, "She's my mother, Naina. Where will she go?" "I know she's your mother," she said, her voice breaking a little. "But I want a home that feels like us, not like a shadow of your past." There was silence after that, long and painful. And then, Arjun said, "Please, don't talk like that." I sat in my bed, hands shaking, eyes fixed on the dark ceiling. I never wanted to be a burden. I never wanted my presence to feel heavy. I had moved in because my son insisted, because he said, "Ma, you'll never be alone again." But now, I understood that sometimes love changes form. It doesn't disappear. It just moves further away until you can barely feel it anymore. The next morning, Arjun acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled, kissed my forehead before leaving for work. Naina didn't say much. She poured her tea, scrolled through her phone, and left her plate half finished. I went to my room and sat by the window. Outside, children were playing, their laughter carried through the air. I thought about the days when Arjun was their age, when we lived in a small one-room house. He never complained, not once. Even when I worked long hours at the school canteen, he would wait for me, reheating dinner by himself. He used to say, "One day, Ma, I'll buy you a big house where you'll never have to work again." And he did. But what I didn't know then was that love doesn't always survive comfort. Weeks passed like quiet rain. I stopped cooking, stopped trying to be part of their daily rhythm. I told myself it was better this way, less friction, less tension. Then one evening, Arjun came to my room. "Ma," he said softly, sitting beside me, "Naina feels. She feels you might be unhappy here. Maybe you'd be more comfortable in your hometown for a while, just until things settle." His words were gentle, but they pierced through me. I looked at him, my son, my life's purpose, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. I wanted to say, "I am not unhappy here, beta. I am lonely," but I didn't. I just nodded. "If that's what makes you both comfortable, I'll go." He looked surprised, maybe even guilty. "No, Ma, it's not like that. I interrupted softly. "It's okay, Arjun, I understand." He held my hand like he used to as a little boy and whispered, "I love you, Ma." And I smiled. "I know you do." That night, I packed my small bag, just in case. I folded to saris my medicines, and that old framed photo of him as a child that I had quietly taken back from the drawer. Something in my heart told me this piece wouldn't last, and I was right. A few days later, Naina came home from work early. She looked tired, her eyes heavy, her shoulders tensed. I was in the kitchen making tea. She walked in and said, "You really shouldn't be doing this, Ma. You'll hurt your back." I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I'm fine." She sighed. "That's not the point. You do too much. We can manage." I turned off the stove and looked at her. "I'm just trying to help." "Help," she said, her tone sharper now. "Sometimes your help feels like interference." The room went still. The boiling water hissed quietly in the pot. I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice not to tremble. She exhaled loudly. "I'm sorry, Ma, but you've become a burden. I can't do this anymore." Her words fell like stones. For a second, everything around me disappeared. The sound of the clock, the smell of tea, even the weight of the cup in my hand. Just silence. A silence so deep it felt like time had stopped. I looked at her face. She wasn't cruel, just exhausted. Maybe she didn't even realize what she was saying. Maybe she did. But in that moment, I understood something clearly. When love turns into tolerance, it's time to go. So I smiled. A small, trembling smile. "I understand," I said. And that evening, while they were both out, I left. The sky was gray. The air was cool. I walked down the street with my small suitcase, the same one I had packed days ago. Every step felt heavier than the last. I didn't have a plan or a destination. Just the quiet voice inside me saying, "Go." I passed the old park where Arjun used to play as a boy. I stood there for a minute, watching children run across the grass, their laughter echoing against the wind. I remembered his tiny hands, his laughter, the way he'd shout, "Ma, look at me." From the swing, a tear rolled down my cheek. But I didn't wipe it, because for the first time in years, I wasn't pretending to be strong. That night, I reached the small train station. I sat on the cold bench, holding my bag close. The night was quiet, except for the sound of trains passing in the distance. I didn't call Arjun. I didn't leave a note. I just disappeared, hoping that maybe one day he'd understand why. Soft piano fades in. Sound of distant rain. Scene ends on the mother sitting alone at the station, her face lit by a flickering lamppost. The platform was nearly empty that night. The station lights flickered softly, painting long shadows on the floor. A cool wind moved through the air, brushing against my face like a memory. I sat quietly, my small bag beside me. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the kind of loneliness that sinks into your bones. The train to my hometown arrived around midnight. I hesitated for a moment before stepping in. It had been years since I last visited that place, the small town where Arjun was born, where his father and I had built a life from nothing. As the train began to move, I looked out the window. City lights blurred into darkness. I could see my reflection in the glass, an old woman with tired eyes and a gentle smile, someone who had given her life to love, and now had to learn how to live without it. The journey was long. At every stop, vendors shouted, children laughed, people boarded and left, life moving on as if the world hadn't noticed one heart quietly breaking among them. I reached the town at dawn. The sky was a pale blue, and the morning air carried the smell of wet soil and jasmine. I took a small auto to the neighborhood where our old house once stood. It wasn't there anymore, replaced by a tall, pale building, the place where Arjun took his first steps, where his father used to sit on the veranda reading the newspaper. Gone. For a moment, I just stood there, clutching my bag, feeling like a stranger in my own past. There was a small temple nearby, and beside it, a home for elderly